You're listening to episode 8 of the Confident Writer podcast with Jane Pike. A different style of podcast for you today. I'm outside at the moment. It's day 3 of my US trip. And this afternoon at about 1 p.m. we are heading to the Western States Horse Expo. So at the moment we're getting everything organised and packing, and I spent a little bit of time this morning having a think about what I would like to do for my clinic presentations and just getting my head in the right space to make it all happen really. But I guess part of the excitement or part of the joy of being away and getting to hang out with your crew is the conversations that come up. And that really got me thinking about how interesting it is to just blow the lid off some of the everyday topics or the everyday thoughts and things that we think about and just have some real conversations about them. And this morning I was talking with Kathy about what I am referring to as radical self-acceptance. And radical self-acceptance involves doing the thing that you want to do, accepting that you've done it without adding a story to it or without indulging yourself in unnecessary amounts of self-criticism or trying to pull yourself down in some way that usually results in you either not doing the thing that you want to do, talking yourself out of doing the thing that you want to do, or just basically sucking the joy out of the entire process. I'm going to give you an example of what it is that I'm talking about. So my journey, or my current journey of radical self-acceptance is very much to do with exactly what I'm doing right now. Recording podcasts, making more videos, just basically producing more content that requires me to put myself out there. And I know that I am not the only one who goes through these types of motions, but it's so easy to get into the space of completely pulling yourself apart. For instance, with audio recordings, I'd listen back, and one of the things that stopped me doing it in the first place was actually thinking that I talked too fast, or sometimes I didn't address something within the subject matter or within the topic that I really wanted to include, and that made me feel like I needed to do it all again. But there was always something that I could criticise myself over that made me think that other people were going to think X, Y, or Z, or just basically prevented me putting it out there in some shape or form. Video-wise, it's so easy to look at yourself. We all do this in photos, and I see this time and time again in my groups, where the first thing we see is something that we either don't like about ourselves or that is wrong. So I might think, oh my God, why am I pulling that kind of facial expression? Or, God, look at the wrinkles around my eyes, or that sort of thing, And the interesting thing about this is I actually consider myself to be fairly self-accepting. Like I like myself. I don't think that, I'm a bad person. I know that I have really good intentions, and it's not that I have these huge gripes about how it is I look or how it is I behave. However, I still do this because we are almost programmed as a default to really pick apart the things that we don't like. With that in mind, the process of radical self-acceptance is one that I'm actively engaging in. And the modus operandi that I'm following is basically to produce something, to write something, to film something, to record something, and then to release it into the world and to move on to the next thing. I don't allow myself to indulge the thought process of what it might look like or what it might mean or what I could have done better. I just accept for that moment, that was what I had, that's what I produced, and now I'm on to the next thing. In a way, it's a kind of karma yoga. I don't know how many of you are familiar with different yoga practices, but in my early 20s, yoga was something that I was really passionate about and went into with quite a lot of depth and exploration. And I actually lived in India for kind of on and off for about 3 years as a result of various work practices, but also studied yoga therapy and different breath work and so on and so forth. So it was something I was really, really into. It wasn't kind of a passing phase. And really, yoga at its essence is about bringing the mind to one pointed attention. So there's various arms of yoga, and the physical practice is actually the third arm of yoga. And the reason that we do a physical practice from a traditional perspective is to mobilize the breath within the body. So a traditional yoga practice always combines the elements of breath and movement together. And when you do that, you are harnessing the breath in order to narrow your focus and bring your mind to a stiller place to enable you to meditate. Karma yoga is a branch of yoga practice, which basically means you are not attached to a result. So you perform a particular activity, you perform a service, you give something, you do something which requires something of yourself with no or little attachment to what comes back to you. And in a way, this process of radical self-acceptance is karma yoga. It is allowing yourself to engage in an activity with an intention of whatever it is that relates to that. So for me, I really want to educate, I hope to inspire, I hope to help people on their journey with their horses and with themselves. And in order to do that, I have to allow myself the luxury of producing content and of putting things out there, being non-attached to how that might be received, or what it is that people might think of me, or indeed what it is that I might think of myself, understanding that we all have our filter systems that really determine our perception at any one time, in any given case anyway. So what I hope to spark within you is how it is you could start to engage in this process of radical self-acceptance yourself. And it can be with very little things like looking at a photograph of you and your horse and choosing to see what it is that you like about that before you start to berate yourself. Even doing that in terms of how it is you view photos of other people or content from other people, and noticing your biases and judgments that come up that are actually reflective of the things that you perhaps are most hard on yourself about, or the judgments that you hold about yourself. And what I was talking about with Kathy, who is here with us now, and she's amazing, she's from Wales and does amazing work with horses. What I was talking about with Kathy is this misconception or this idea that a lot of us hold, especially when we view other people in a professional capacity, that in order to do the thing that scares us or that we want to do and that requires us to put ourselves out there in some way, we believe that we have to feel ready for it, that in order to be good at it, it won't feel hard or will be somehow removed from this desire to critique what it is that we're doing in a negative form. And what I want to really tell you is that doesn't happen. That you cannot wait for that to happen, because it's always a new level, new devil situation. And life is a practice. This is a practice. So although for me now I'm very comfortable with video, there are certain forms of video, like perhaps more personal video, that I feel that inner voice come up that tells me, you know, what's wrong with that or what I should have done better. And the practice is, the karma yoga of it is doing the thing and releasing it into the world, blessing it and going on to the next thing. So part of the joy, I think, and part of the next stage of the practice is to be able to sit with feelings, sit with the ember of a feeling without having to attach a story to it. And this is the cultivation of mindful presence, which is so, so important when it comes to our horse training. The practice is then to be with your horse, perhaps at the beginning of a session. So I like to think of this as an emotional transition. When you come into being with your horses or coming into work with your horses, and You allow that space between everything that happened before and your practice now with your horse. You cultivate this emotional transition, and you allow yourself to observe your horse and feel the feelings that you feel without exaggerating them or without adding a story to them. And when you can do this, what happens is that you notice the inherent changeability of emotions, and they gift us with flow. Within that observation, if you want to dive a little bit deeper with me on this, is the understanding that everything is inherently changeable. And it's our tendency to solidify or add a degree of permanency to something that creates identity, for better or for worse, but also that pulls us out of the present and causes us to attach a meaning to something which colours our understanding of what it is that's being presented to us in the moment. So off the back of that, there are two practices that I'm really keen for you to have a think about and then actually bring to life yourself if anything that I'm talking about right now hits the spot for you. The first is to join me on that radical self-acceptance journey, because your ability to accept yourself and to love yourself and not to judge and to view everything that came before with kind sight will allow you to offer that same kindness, to extend that same ability to your horse and to those around you. And so cultivating that is the ultimate gift, the absolute ultimate gift. And the second thing is to cultivate the ability to be present without feeling the need to exaggerate emotions or to add to them in a way that really allows the past to come into your present and colour your ability to see what is actually being offered to you by your horse. So those two things, radical self-acceptance and your ability to maintain feeling and observe feeling in the present moment without exaggeration or overinflation or the need to add a story to it. And let me know how you get on. These are practices that I've been really enjoying, and I've also really enjoyed recording this walk and talk podcast. So I think we're going to be doing a little more of this from now on. If you want to come and dive deeper into the work with me, I have my membership program, Joyride. You can find that on my website, confidentrider.online. But if you're listening to this on your favourite app and you want to screenshot it and share it to social media or leave a review, I'd be so appreciative. And I'm really looking forward to listening and hanging out with you. I won't be listening, will I? But I will be hanging out with you in the next episode. Have a great day.